Welcome to Analyzing the Magnus Protocol, Episode 31, Compartmentalizing, the first episode of Season 2. Please go check out this episode, I'll have the links in the description. It is just going to be me today, sadly, but nonetheless, there is a lot to chew on, so let's get right into the episode. So we begin exactly where the epilogue left us back in Season 1. With Alice and Gwen staring at a server rack with a human hand in it next to Colin's phone. Gwen and Alice discuss whether or not it is Colin's. Alice seemingly just knows that it's Colin's, Gwen trying to deny it as much as possible. And then Alice mentions that there's no blood on the hand or anywhere in the server rack, but that there are wires coming off of the hand connecting it to the various panels inside the server rack. Gwen thinks that she should just call the police, that this is a crime scene, because there's a random disjointed hand inside their server rack. And then that is when Gwen is about to phone the police, when Alice says, "You should probably hold off on that," and the hand is just gone, seemingly. No trace of it. Gwen initially tries to blame Alice that she might have moved it or something, but Alice continues to insist that they should try and call or contact Lena, and Gwen continuing to be offended, I should say, that she's the one in charge now, she should be able to deal with this. And then this is when the two of them kind of, snap. Alice just, saying that, well, Sam is gone, Colin is dead, Lena's nowhere. What happened, Gwen? If you're the expert, what happened? And Gwen just, I don't know. Being truthful for once, she doesn't know what's going on. This is when one of the nearby terminals, just beeps. And then we have and then Gwen, a terminal beeps, and Gwen just, what's that? And Alice is just, oh, this is a beep. And Gwen's like, no shit, it's a beep, where? And then another beep, and I believe, even in the transcripts it doesn't necessarily say, but Gwen says, I see it, open it, Alice, and then Alice retorts with, no, you open it, if it ain't Colin, I'm not gonna open it, so I assume it's some laptop or other computer, or maybe another server rack, or something like that. But then there's a third beep that somehow almost sounds impatient. And this is when we hear Chester's voice spring open. And Chester begins reading an error log with the date of 14/05/2024, the time 4:03. And it is saying that there is a category fatal programming error and attempted host compromise. fr3-d1.exe with jmj equals null. A traceback module by extension, Becker. If you all remember, that's Colin's last name. And we hear a recording start that seemingly sounds like it's coming from this computer, but it gets distorted, like rushing liquid. And then we hear Colin muffling, you son of a bitch, to himself, as Colin does. Saying, I got you now, no more red tape, no one's coming to the rescue, just you and me. And he has a crowbar in his hands, seemingly to smash the server rack. The recording then clicks off, and we hear Chester again saying, host equals self.host, extension Becker, compromised, self.host runtime interruption by unexpected data, hardware damage _ crowbar, DPHW4600, administrator privilege revoked. This is the thing I'm going to come back to in a moment. Then the recording resumes, and Colin struggles as he's trying to thrash around the crowbar to hit the computer rack, when we just hear, as the transcript, says, I can't really describe it as anything else, angry computer noises, as Colin begins to cry in agony. Chester cuts back in saying, unexpected data is isolated/resolved. Extension Becker isolated/resolved. Independent operation permissions revoked. node integration running. This is when we get the recording comes back in, and Colin is seemingly dragged into the computer, his voice becoming more digitalized and distorted as it goes on for a few seconds. And then Chester cuts back in after that recording ends. And this is the big thing. Reconfig self.host. Discarded data oxygen.becker complete. Discarded data carbon.becker complete. Discarded data hydrogen.becker complete. Nitrogen, calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, sodium, chlorine, magnesium, and trace. Data discarded complete.
Bit by bit! Yeah. Molecule by molecule! Atom by atom!
Element by element, Freddy breaks down Colin from the most common to the rare, and it continues. Extension Becker resolved 1405.2024 40406. Self.host errors resolved 1405.2024 0407. .jmj error not resolved. Data integration cycle ongoing 0.02%. System function margins acceptable 82%. New administrator permissions assigned. And then that's when we hear... That's... I'm gonna put it up on screen, but this is when the transcript says, pause, as Gwen and Alice and Freddy digest this. Jonathan Sims, you bastard, he wrote this episode. And then Gwen and Alice, continue discussing. Alice freaked out that Freddy murdered Colin. And Gwen essentially just saying that there's, we shouldn't antagonize it. There's not much we can do. And Alice is just like, so what, we're hostages now? And Gwen is like, I'm sure we can leave. And that's when we get the Freddy lie detector beep go off. That goes off a lot this episode. This is when Gwen asks Freddy if they can leave, and there is just silence. This then continues on, Alice asking Gwen where Lena is, and they should definitely get Lena. Gwen saying that she's in charge, they don't need Lena. Basically, she's just saying that, the administrator gave me Lena's job. And then Gwen asks about Sam on, is he, what does Alice mean by he's gone? Is he dead? And, Alice, is no. Celia just says he's gone, or at least that's what Celia thinks. Then they basically just talk about Celia and how she described that there was a tear, if that meant anything, and that Sam tried to fight the archivist and they fell into said tear or whatever. And this is when they basically decide to, go get Celia back to the office to actually discuss what's going on. This is when a tape recorder clicks on, and we hear Sam breathing in. Our boy is struggling right now, and this electrical buzzing begins to fill the air as we hear cries out in the distance. And Sam just, says help. He's weak. His voice is rough. And there's no response. He asks for anybody to please help him. And he tries to drag himself through this mulch or wet. I think it's raining actually. And then we hear something skitter, and as the transcript says, a large skitters nearby with too many legs. Then a buzzing sound grows louder, like an approaching migraine. Sam again asks for help, and yet this buzzing crescendos. And then suddenly his words are echoed back, but they are not being reflected. They are being repeated by something. And again, we hear these echoes of, I need help. Sam then, trembling and scared, tells whatever this is to get away from him as he continues to try and stumbles off into the weird, as the transcript says. And then we cut to a baby monitor as Celia is trying to comfort Jack, saying that, don't worry, she's not going anywhere. She's not going to leave him. Everything will be okay, and Sam will be okay too, is what she says. And then Jack is eventually, like, sleeping when Alice is at the door saying that she needs to come into the office. Gwen and her need to, like, talk about what actually happened, basically. And Alice just saying how Freddy killed Colin. Gwen's in charge for some whatever reason. And Celia basically just says that they don't need to get involved. This is, government thing. They should probably just leave it up to the government. And Alice is just like, no, like, Sam, we need to find him. We need to know what happened to Sam. And Celia is just saying, he's gone. And, Alice is just confused by that. What do you mean by he's gone? Celia doesn't really know. Well, she does. And Celia mentions that tear is probably some portal to another world or dimension or something. Alice asking, how do you exactly know that? And Celia's like, I recognized it from a case. And then, Alice basically being like, oh, well, we'll just tie a rope and I'll jump in and try to get Sam. And then Celia just continuing to say that, well, we don't know if you two would end up in the same spot, or if you would even survive. And then this is when Alice gets really angry, just kind of yelling as to what we do, because she wants to find Sam, and, Sam was there in the first place because of you, so you have to help to get him back. And this is when, Jack awakens and starts crying, because baby. Celia says that she'll just call the babysitter, and she'll go to the OIR. Oh, and then this is when Alice's phone starts ringing, and it's Gwen. And then from the phone, Gwen is pacing, and we hear, like, a printer, like, printing paper off in the background, while Jack is also crying. And Gwen is just, Gwen asks, did you get Celia? Is she coming back? And Alice is like, yeah, she's, got to tie up a few things, but then, we're heading over there. And Gwen says just hurry up and get back, because the photocopier is printing Colin's face over and over again. Gwen says she unplugged it, but it's still just printing Colin's face over and over and over. Alice then says he'd hate that. He always wanted us to go paperless. And Gwen is just, this is not the time, Alice. This is when tape recorder clicks back in. Sam is, like, trying to, like, move through this marsh, this, like, wetland that he's in, when the, like, weird buzzing we heard before is, like, still, like, audible. Sam saying to just leave me alone, and echoes, leave me alone in Sam's voice. He then stumbles again, only to hear this rumbling from him. He struggles to stand, but the loud, like, scuttling, like, comes close to him, just as an APV floodlights snap on, and the, like, weirdness begins to scatter. And this is when we hear, the boy David Alt as Warden Dave, who we saw in the Protocol 2, trailer not a while, or, like, last week. This, Warden Dave then hears Sam and is like, oh shit, that's a dude, that's a person. Asking how the hell he got there, and Sam being just very disillusioned and confused. He says, oh, never mind, you can tell us later. For now, we got to deal with those bastards on your trail. Then Warden Dave asks Sam to whistle. Like, asks if Sam can whistle, and Sam is just shoot them. Like, Warden Dave has a gun, and he's like, oh, it wouldn't do much good. They've got your scent now, so unless you want to stay here and get messed up nice and proper by your new mates, you'd best start whistling something bloody cheerful, nice and loud. Then, Sam starts whistling circus music. Like, he starts doing that, and Warden Dave is like, not circus music, you cretin. Something alive, something cheery. He starts whistling something else then, and then, Warden Dave says better, not exactly good, but it'll do, and then the two of them, get out of there. So this is when we cut to, Celia's phone, at her house, thanking, Georgie, then, that she came here so quick, and they have a little discussion. Celia basically, saying that, oh, there's not going to be any, like, zero notice, calls anymore. Georgie, not really caring. She, enjoys it, enjoys Jack and whatnot. So, as Alice pokes her head in saying that the cab is there, and, the Alice and Celia, head off. This is when we get tape recorder click. Sam is handcuffed, and he is sitting down, and he's, asking hello, asking if these are necessary. Sam, tries, can you tell me where I am? Warden Dave just says to shut up. And Sam asking if he wants a solicitor. To Warden Dave just saying shut up and that the captain will be here soon. And, Sam basically, oh, well, can they explain? Warden Dave is just, they'll decide what to do with you. This is when heavy bolts, like, we hear, like, heavy bolts as a door opens, and Georgie comes in. Captain Georgie. Georgie just asking Dave what happened for a report. Dave saying that they got some weird readings near the center of the mile. Me and Heidi went to check it out, found this. And Georgie asks, human? And Warden Dave is like, the doctor reckons so. He appears bad though, malnourished, and he wants to put him on an IV. But Warden Dave wanted to check with the captain first before they did anything. Georgie saying that she'll be fine. Warden David leaves. Sam again asking for a solicitor. Georgie smirks and says, I'm not sure we've got any left. Sam asking where he is. Basically, Georgie just, not answering that, asking for his name, and that Sam is fine, rather than the full name. Georgie does explain that you're in a warding facility on the edge of the London exclusion zone. Sam asking how did you get there, Georgie responds with, from what I heard, you got to riding Gertrude. You should be honored, she's the longest surviving vehicle we've had. As for now, you've got right, as to how you got right in the middle of a square mile without anyone noticing, that's something I want you to tell me. And then Sam saying back that, that wasn't London, that's horrific, that's a nightmare out there. Georgie asking, are you a dreamer, Sam, a cultist, possessed by some wooden idol? We've seen it all before. Sam just says I work in civil service. Georgie then saying I stand corrected. And then asking what was your domain? Some Kafka bureaucracy thing? Not one of the bigger ones, but it would make sense. And then Sam, getting more, like, tired, is saying, I was falling in Celia, and he's stumbling on his words. Georgie, stay with me, Sam. How'd you break into the zone, sort of talk. And Sam, like, says he should have drunk the tea, and then he just falls unconscious. Back at the OIAR landline, Celia, it cuts into the middle of Celia talking how Sam, attacked the archivist. Flash of light, Celia woke up on the ground, and they were both gone. Gwen basically asked, are you sure they weren't, like, disintegrated? And Alice is like, what the fuck, dude? Celia says, like, it being a portal is probably not the right way, the right word. Basically saying that it's more complicated than, like, a doorway leading to somewhere else. It's, it takes you to, it's more complicated than that, is basically what she's trying to say. Gwen basically asking, how sure are you of this? And Celia responding that she processed a decent number of cases like this over the last few months, and they were all pretty consistent. Gwen then saying that she's prohibiting direct interaction with the phenomena below Hilltop Center until they have more information. Alice basically saying, too bad you're not in charge. And Gwen saying, basically, I am. And, I'm sorry you didn't get an email saying that this would happen, but I'm your boss whether you like it or not. This is when Alice is saying, it's like, oh, too bad, like, the only proof of that is an email, which I can't read because I'm afraid it'll eat me. And then Gwen is saying, it did not eat Colin. The system just responded to an attack, and we hear the fucking lie detector go off, and then Alice says, by eating Colin. This is when Gwen also says that, I'm sure as long as we don't follow in his footsteps, we can maintain business as usual. And we hear the lie detector go off again. Celia asking is like, can't you contact, someone higher up? And Gwen is like, well, the minister's busy. And Alice is also like, also, we're a sack of skin. A useless sack of skin. Gwen basically saying that they, if they're further to try and find out what Sam's going on, they gotta keep these, investigations, off the books. Neither Gwen nor the OIAR are accepted for liability of the safety in these investigations. So Alice is just like, alright, well, we're staying. Celia, again, trying to, leave the OIAR. Alice just, pleads her to, hey, help me find Sam, at least, and then Gwen is like, alright, well, if that's it, then I suggest you all get back to your workload. And Alice is like, meaning all of your cases, right? And then this is when Gwen is like, maybe. And then this is a weird thing I caught on. Gwen says partially. Now, if you don't mind, I'm very busy. And we hear the lie detector go off. With Gwen saying that, I respect a little more respect out of you, Alice. I'm your, manager after all. And Alice is like, then respectfully, you can kiss my ass. And in the middle of that, it cuts to a tape recorder. And we hear Warden Heidi, who also appeared in the Season Protocol 2 trailer, basically talking with Warden Dave how she just finished up clearing Sector 11, and Warden Dave has nothing in Sector 7. As Heidi moves to 12, she falls short on a tape recorder, saying that, it's still there then, and then, picks it up, approaching it, and is like, oh shit, it's running. You're recording me. And she begins to monologue to herself as the archivist approaches. And Warden Heidi begins telling her statement of how the world ended, all due to the Magnus Institute. Basically, she explains that every hour of every day, every week, every month, for, every year of all eternity, everything was watching her. Every camera, all the great and terrible eye that watched it all. And then in the transcript, it says, the archivist has arrived. Listening, hungry, it sucks up the statement like a fine wine. Warden Heidi continues saying that she worked security with the police. Sometimes it was bad, but it was all, they always heard of the Magnus Institute. It was, the weirdos next door. They would always talk about how, you'd give your statement, hoping to feel better, and all you'd get is nightmares in return. Until all one day, it was gone. London, the people, the world, with the Institute towering over everything. And then she says how the cameras turned on her. The long metal sharp legs as they chased her through the streets, clambering over the empty buildings, always closer, focused, staring and hungry. And even though their lenses were cracked and shattered, it never stopped them from staring at her. She describes how, even as you begged, screamed, they still just drank you up and watched. Not eating you, but always just watching. She says how sometimes you could hide, sometimes you can make the occasional friend trying to hide with you, but you'd always just be using them so you could buy yourselves a few seconds peace. And whenever she was alone, she would always see them in her dreams, a fellow victim or something watching. But those dreams faded. The scars did not. Not when the tower fell and the eye closed. Not when the pupil collapsed and the archivist died. His face still burned into her mind. But this was when some people started talking about to be rebuilding, recovering, fixing what's broken. But she couldn't move on. She could not leave it behind, their eyes hollow and dead as hers. But if she couldn't escape them, then I would not keep the lingering things of dread contained and be the watcher once more. And then this is when we hear a tonal shift. She starts getting more combative against the archivist's compulsion. She says how she knows what it's like to be watched and judged, scrutinized, to have the terror wrung out of you. And then this is when Heidi begins to struggle, like, word for word. And, you know, with this last message she has, but with the last of me, of my fear, you and take my hate, my loathing. This place is not for you. There is no place left for monsters. We will be your end, and I will watch. As Heidi collapses dead on the ground. We hear a audible sigh from the archivist as we hear Warden Dave cut on through the radio saying that Sector 8 is clear and how is 12. Getting concerned, he asks for Heidi. If Heidi's there, the tape recorder clicks off and the episode ends. So a few many things to discuss, right? This is honestly like my favorite episode out of all of Protocol, maybe even all of Archivists so far. Just being able to interconnect. The fact they named an APV vehicle after Gertrude, and it's the last one still surviving, is hilarious. Like, there's so much that we can just start talking about. I'm gonna start just going through, like, you know, the chronological order of this episode. So, unlike we all thought in the epilogue, it's not Colin's body that's strung up. They find his hand, and it's wired into the computer frame until it's eventually just suckled. You know, just... And then we get the recording that, Colin tried to, smash the server room with a crowbar this time, not... So, it attacked him. Freddy is a threat. And all of this stuff about, the stuff that Chester reads. The fact that, like, I believe it's here when it initially starts. Error log. Category fatal programming error. Error no 611, attempted host compromised. Freddy.exe, JMJ equals null. Traceback module by extension, Becker. Like, attempted host compromise is that Freddy may be trying to get the JMJ out into the real world through some sort of body. What the hell is, the extension Becker compromised. Self.host runtime interrupted by unexpected data. Hardware damage _ crowbar. Administrator privilege revoked. What's the administrator privilege? It got revoked as soon as Colin started to attack it. Like, what could that possibly mean? Does everyone who worked for the OIAR have some sort of access or, like, protection from Freddy? Again, going back to, like, the whole, we aren't necessarily the bad guys, we manage the bad guys. The fact that, it kills Colin and we hear his voice just distort in this agony. And then, going back to, everything has been about alchemy. Not fears this time around, just alchemy, the law of equivalent exchange, and Celia basically, I came from this universe, it wants me back, someone must take my place, like, all of that stuff. Chester, Freddy, whatever, discards data, calcium.becker, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, sodium, sulfur, chlorine, magnesium, trace, all of these elements just of Colin gone, discarded. Like, that's not something it needs. Well, I guess that then that flips the tail on the theory that I just had of if it's trying to get a body into the real world, it would probably need those things. But if it's discarding the data, then it just needs something else, which isn't those things. Which is interesting. But then again, at the end of all that, it says that the .jmj error not resolved. So it's trying to fix it. Freddy is trying to fix this JMJ error. And then data integration cycle ongoing 0.02%. That tells me maybe a couple other things. Like, maybe it is actually trying to get, John Martin into the real world or whatever, but something isn't going on. Or, like, this cycle has been ongoing and it's at 0.02%. What could that possibly be? The system function margins acceptable 82%. that's, I don't know, is that Freddy just naturally functioning? The fact that we get, you know, more personality out of Freddy in this episode than anything else is interesting. All of the stuff with the London exclusion zone in Sam and in the Archives universe, the fact we see Archives Georgie, cool. There is, they have some sort of society, some sort of rules after the apocalypse that is going on, and this is just, I'm so hyped. I am so excited for all of this. The fact that Captain Georgie, as she is, basically saying that there are still, you know, remnants of the fear dread, the, you know, the domains, you know, saying that, oh, is there, you know, are you a cultist? Are you some sort of possessed person or whatever? Like, you know, Sam says, you know, I work in civil service, and then Georgie's immediate, you know, thing is like, oh, so was that your domain? Was that where you were stuck in? Sort of thing. So we're at a point so many years, months later after the apocalypse that there is a system for these things. There's still creatures out there, and that's what these wardens and warden facility, that's what, you know. Okay, going back onto that. So this is some sort of prison or something, obviously. Like, if there are other, like, still, you know, worshippers, you know, People's Church of the Divine Host, Lightless Flame, if there's still, like, people of, like, those and other fears, like, they're keeping them in some sort of prison. I don't think, you know, they would be killing them. What if that, whatever prison, you know, that's the Millbank prison? Unless, I don't remember if that whole area got destroyed, like, the Panopticon and the Institute when it blew up, or if it blew up. I haven't re-listened to, like, the ending of Archives in a minute, but I'll have to refresh on that. But again, that, you know, that all of this is just very interesting, and I already can't wait for the next episode. Oh my god, that in the Archivist, like, if they haven't encountered anything like the Archivist, but that would be interesting. Like, because the Archivist is something of the protocol world, and if Archives world is just dealing with the fear, like, what could that be? And Warden Heidi basically talking about this eye domain that she was in when, you know, the apocalypse was, you know, happening. The, you know, gallery of eyes and everything. It's just so cool to see the aftermath or experiences from that. And I just can't wait for all of this to, you know. We're just starting season 2. This is quite literally the first episode of season 2. And there are already 59 episodes left. Like, Protocol is going to be 3 seasons, 30 episodes each, we imagine. So 90 episodes to send off everything, which is going to be very cool. We're already 31 episodes in, a third of the way through. So I'm really excited to see what happens next. Again, if any of you have any theories, comments, leave those down below. If you enjoyed, please subscribe. I'll see you all next time for episode 32. Or maybe some other theory video. Whatever I decide to make next.